Shabbat shalom.
Shabbos.
You ever heard that expression, keep your friends close and your enemies closer? Yes, what does that mean? What's that, Josh? I missed it. Josh is good for his one-liners, his comedy routine, but I missed that one. I'm sorry.
Because your friends you can trust, but your enemies you better keep an eye on.
Okay, your friends you can trust, but your enemies you can keep an eye on.
Yeah, you keep a closer eye on your enemies. They're closer.
A closer eye on your enemy. Okay, but why closer?
Well, so you can monitor what they're doing.
Okay. Close is a funny word there. Close. Proximity in this way. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Close could, by any kind of reasonable reading, be about familiarity. I feel very close to this person, to this place, have a close relationship. But then you use it in this like weird, enemy context. It sounds almost the opposite of that. It sounds like monitoring rather than actual intimacy or closeness. It's a funny thing that the word close seems to imply both the thing itself, the immediacy about keeping your friends close, the kindness you have with them, and your enemies closer, and its exact opposite, actually. Keep your friends close to your heart, but with your enemies, there's a sort of vigilance around that. It seems that the word close and closer is actually doing the exact opposite thing in those two sentences. This week's Torah portion is Shmini in the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. This has this famous account about the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Abihu. I'm reading from Vayikra, Leviticus chapter 10 now. Now Aaron's sons Nadav and Abihu each took his fire pan, put fire, laid incense on it, and they offered it before the Lord. And this is all in the context, by the way, parenthetically, of, how did they have worship with God back in the day? They didn't sing songs or prayers or whatever. What did they? Sacrifice. Thank you, Josh. They made offerings to God. And so in this context of offering before the Lord, they offered before God Eish Zarah, strange or alien, weird, however you want to translate it, fire. Eish is fire, we know that much. Zarah is strange, foreign, alien, weird, whatever it is. They offered before God alien fire, which God had not enjoined upon them, and fire came forth from the Lord and consumed them. Thus they died at the instance of the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord meant when he said, 'Through those near to me I show myself holy and gain glory before all the people,' and Aaron was silent." The thing about this piece, the rabbis of antiquity, they have a field day with it because they can't actually conclusively figure out what it means. What exactly did Nadav and Abihu do to merit this terrible thing? They don't know what Eish Zarah is, strange fire. They made an offering of strange fire before God and then the fire consumed them. They don't know what that actually means in reality. What does that actually mean? There's a verse that comes later on about, you shall not do any of this sacrificial stuff in a state of intoxication. And so some of the rabbis are like, oh, well, that must be in reference to this thing earlier. And so maybe they were not in their right minds when they were doing this. There's a really interesting piece here we get, though, from Vayikra Rabbah, really early rabbinic commentary, a couple thousand-ish years old. Because of nearness, kirvah, they entered the innermost section of the sanctuary. Because of sacrificing, krivah, they brought an offering they were not enjoined to bring. I'm mentioning that word twice. What was that word? Krivah, kirvah?
To come close.
That's right, it's closeness. Karov is to be close. That root of those three letters, that K consonant, the R consonant, and the V consonant, constitutes some kind of a proximity thing, and drawing close and getting closer. Interestingly enough, it also gets used. Anybody know what a korban is? A sacrifice. Korban, the name of one of the burnt offerings, one of the sacrifices, actually derives its root from that same word of being close, which is an interesting thing here. Before the Nadav and Avihu thing, if we just had that by itself without the book of Genesis, you might say, oh, well, they were so close and Aaron was so close to God, and so because they were all so close in this, I don't know, morass of closeness, they got, boom, fire. But we know that God doesn't want, like, people sacrifices, human sacrifices. We get that in the whole Akedat Yitzchak, the whole binding of Isaac saga. And so there's something about being close to other things, a sacrifice in that way. It is a real conundrum. Vayikra Rabbah says it was because of this korban thing, because of both nearness, kirva, they got too close perhaps within the sanctuary, and because of kriva, kirva and kriva, they're playing, it's a little wordplay here about getting too close, but also bringing the wrong kind of sacrifice. Vayikra Rabbah is kind of hedging its bets. It doesn't know what to do with this either. Somehow, though, we know that this whole thing is bound up in the idea of being too close. And then we have this bizarro line, at least I always thought it was bizarre. It always read bizarre to me until I was poring over it today and it actually landed on me totally different. The fire comes forth, Nadav and Avihu are incinerated. Then Moses said to Aaron, this is what the Lord meant when he said, through those near to me I show myself holy and gain glory before all the people. And Aaron was silent. Moses has this monologue, soliloquy, weird thing, and it just says, Vayidom Aharon. Aaron doesn't say anything. These are Aaron's kids, meanwhile. I always kind of thought that was just the rudest, most obnoxious thing. This is what God says when God said, through those who are near to me, I show myself holy. God is just making God's self holy. It's no big deal. It sounds obnoxious to me, the Moses response. It sounds like this minimizing diminishment of what feels to me is palpable grief from Aaron. And we get Aaron's response here, Vayidom Aharon. Aaron was silent. He doesn't say anything. And what I stumbled upon with this line was something that I hit upon in one of the traditional lines that one says in and around the end of life and death and funeral. Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. It's a line that's traditionally said upon word that someone has died, upon receiving the news that someone has died. It's also recited very, very much at the beginning of the funeral proceeding, at the time of tearing the ribbon, the Kriya ribbon. Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. It's a weird one to translate literally because it literally says Baruch, blessed, Dayan, judge, Emet, true. Blessed is the true judge. You're sitting in a place of loss, and the Hebrew response to it is, blessed is the judge of truth, or the true judge, or blessed is... To me, when I first heard that and first heard it translated, it sounded to me a little bit like Moses in this line, actually. Some kind of intellectualization of brokenness, of loss. Some kind of fancy theology to gift wrap around, well, the end of life. I had a rabbi in rabbinical school who taught me, the thing about Baruch Dayan Ha'emet is you have to think about what is true in this place. It's not that death, loss is true, although it is. there is a truth to what it means to be present with it, to love someone who has then died, who has passed on from this world. If you weren't in relationship, if you didn't know them, if it wasn't a relationship of love, then the departure is, well, doesn't have the same power, gravity to it. But what makes it such a profound and tragic loss is actually that word again, closeness. It's about being close. And so what this rabbi explained to me is that blessed is the true judge. It's not about some kind of glorification of end of life or something, but it's about that moment of tearing, of kriya, that moment of loss. It's loss because of the closeness. It's the only reason. If you lived in some kind of isolation, some kind of solitude from every other human being around you, you wouldn't have to undergo the loss of any of them. But the more deeply you love, the more deeply you can lose. And I never heard it this way before until I was looking at this line today. Through those near to me, I show myself holy. I don't even know what that means in the English. We'll do it in Hebrew instead. Lemor. Moshe el Aharon to Aaron, Hu asher diber Adonai. This is what God meant when he's saying Lemor. Bikrovai ekadesh. It's through, in those who are close to me, ekadesh. It's like a first person future verb of holiness. The English translation, through those near to me, I show myself holy. I don't think that's it, actually. In closeness, I actually connect to what is holiest in the world. When we talk about being B'Tselem Elohim, being made in the image of God, it's not just me looking in the mirror, it's actually me looking at the people who I love. I think this is the nature of that closeness. And this is why you can keep your friends close and your enemies closer, in fact, and it's that exact same word, and it works in exactly a contradictory fashion, and yet it's totally true, is because that to be close is to undergo and is to hold the end of that, because we are finite. But within that closeness, if you're trying to look for where God might be in this splash of fire and the death of Aaron's sons and all of this stuff and whatever, where is the holiness? Where is the intentionality? Where is the justice or whatever? What's the reason for it even? When you might say, at the very least, that within that closeness, Aaron and his sons, there is a place in which you can find holiness amidst whatever else we see unfolding on the page. We're going to do a little more and talk a little bit more about closeness and the nature of Karov tomorrow. But for now, Shabbat Shalom.